Salams and welcome. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Quran in English, and we look at the basics for beginners. We are busy with chapter number 4, which is Surah An-Nisa. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I seek refuge in God. I seek refuge in Allah from Shaitan the accursed. I begin in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Surah 4, verse number 86. When a courteous greeting is offered you, meet it with a greeting still more courteous, or at least of equal courtesy. Allah takes careful account of all things. Why is there so much emphasis in the Quran and on this verse about courteous greeting? Let's ponder over this for a short while. The basis of Islam, as what I mentioned before, there are two aspects which some people forget, is that when people ask about what is Islam, then it's very easy to recite the 5 pillars of Islam. One is Tawheed, La ilaha illallah, then it's your Salah, your fasting, your Zakat, and going for Hajj, and so on. But people forget that that is not basically Islam. That is only an incomplete aspect of Islam. There are two very, very powerful concepts in Islam. One is social justice. That means you cannot be a good Muslim unless you make a positive difference in the lives of other people. So social justice is a very powerful pillar of Islam, or a principle of Islam. And a second very powerful principle of Islam is known as akhlaq. The Prophet Sal'lal'laa'hu A'layhi Was'sallam stands on an exalted standard of character. And he famously said that I have been sent to perfect character. And remember that when the Prophet Mohamed, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when the revelation came to him, he was faced with a huge challenge. He was not speaking to educated people. He was speaking to very rough, uncultured, uncouth, tribal warlords of the Arabian desert. These were people who would fight at the very smallest affront. They had great pride in who they were. There was no such thing as good manners or courtesy and so on. So he had to transform these people from wild Bedouins, uncouth Bedouins, into the most outstanding, dazzling diamonds with the best of morals, conduct, behavior, and ethics and integrity. And the fundamental starting point of improving your good manners is greeting and courtesy and respect. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, left Mecca after 13 years of persecution, there was an assassination attempt on him, and then he, with his best friend Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu, then went first in a southerly direction, because remember Medina is in the north. So instead of going north way, they did a strategic maneuver to outwit the enemies. So then they went south, and then they went southwest towards Red Sea, and then finally they went northeast towards Medina. And what was his inaugural speech as the new president of Medina? What did he talk about? What was very interesting for me is that he did not complain about the difficulty that he had during his trip of the Hijrah. He did not say, hey, you know what, when I went, like, if it was any of us, I would have done that, or if any of you would have done that, I would have said, hey, you know what, they surrounded my house, and these people, they came with their spears, and Abu Jahl sent his sons, and all the chiefs sent their people, and they came with their spears and their swords, and they surrounded the house. But you know what, I told Ali to take my place. I gave him my green cloak, and I put him in my bed, and meanwhile I escaped from there. I went to Abu Bakr's house. Instead of going north, we went south, went to the cave, and then from there went blah 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 blah. We would do that. He did not say any of those things. The first words of his inaugural speech, he knew that everybody is going to remember that. So he was not interested in talking about the difficulty that he went through, but he was interested in transforming society. So the very first words that he uttered in his inaugural speech as the new president or the new king of Medina is spread the greeting and feed the poor. Can you imagine that? You will never forget that. So everyone who came there, who were waiting for him for so many days, waiting anxiously for him to arrive safely through the heat of the desert, waiting and waiting to see what golden words of wisdom are going to come out of this final messenger from God. And the words that come out from his mouth is, spread the greeting and feed the poor. Look at that. So immediately he is uniting society. He is immediately focusing on the poor members of society to say, how can you call yourself a believer if someone is poor in your community? So what did the people do? Immediately they started greeting everyone, the people they knew and the ones they did not know, because there were a lot of strangers who came from Mecca, the refugees. And what do we do normally as human beings? If we find there's a foreigner or a stranger, we will tend to ignore these people or will regard them as third-class citizens. Oh, that guy is a foreigner. No, just ignore that person. That guy is a foreigner. But here the Prophet Muhammad is saying, honor that person. Treat that person with dignity, because that person is a believer just as you are believers. And that is how he formed the brotherhood between the Ansar and the Muhajirin. The Ansar are the people of Medina who helped out the refugees from Mecca, known as the Muhajirin. So the foundational basis of a Muslim is, when a courteous greeting is offered you, you must reply with even a better courteous greeting, or at least of equal courtesy. And this way there you break the barriers of being a cold society. We must be warm, loving human beings. We must learn from our pets. If you've ever had a little puppy in your house or a little cat in your house, and after a long day you're coming home, what's the first thing your dog will do? That dog will wag the tail, at a very high frequency. That dog is so happy to see you. Even if you haven't fed the dog the whole day, that dog doesn't bear grudges. That's what I find absolutely amazing about dogs. They don't bear grudges. That dog, that little tail will be wagging like this, and immediately, whatever difficulty you had in the day, your worries will evaporate because your animal is greeting you. So why can't we learn from animals how to be good human beings? If you have a cat, if you're a cat lover, and you see how the cats will come greeting you, they will rub themselves against you and make grrr, grrr. The purring of a cat is absolutely magnificent. The cats are greeting. So we as human beings must also learn to greet. And from a business point of view, the business gurus tell us that you need to render good customer care. And one of the powerful principles of good customer care is to smile at the customer and to offer a courteous greeting to the customer. A famous Chinese saying says, "Man who does not smile should not open shop." Very simple. If you don't know how to smile, then don't even bother opening up a business, because no customers are going to come to you. Join me in the next episode as we continue with the series. Alhamdulillah.